Hey folks, this is Steve from M4, and this video is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be specific, talking about slide rollers and Slim Rack Plus rail adjustments. It is used on our Dynamax. I have a 2024 32KD, but it's also used on a lot of other RVs out there, and hopefully it'll help out and diagnose rollers that are failing and need to be adjusted, and an improvement to do that. And also the adjustment of the slim rack if it still looks like the rails are too high or too low. The video's gonna run a little bit backwards. The first segment is gonna show how I did the rollers on the bedroom slide at the end, because that includes a slight adjustment with using washers to improve them, I believe. The second part of second segment of the video is gonna be the main slide, and that's where my rollers were mainly failing and the bearings were squishing out the ends of the rollers. The third part of it is going to be the adjustment to the rack, and specifically on ours it's going to be the lower rack on the main slide, which has very little access, which is near the refrigerator and the wall. So it's probably one of the hardest ones to get to, other than the one above it. I have done the adjustment on a bedroom rack, and it was much easier after you get some stuff out of the way on the trim, but this one you got to work through a cabinet, and you'll see that in the video. So fast forward if you only need to see the adjustments on the rack part. It is probably going to end up being kind of a long video. Just get what you need out of it, and I hope it helps. Hey folks, it's Steve from M4, and just going over replacing the rollers underneath the slide on our Dynamax 32KD. I've already done the main slide. There were 6 over there, and they were in various forms of failing. I have some of that footage. I'll probably splice that in here, but just wanted to do this one as a quicker recap. And the bedroom slide. The bedroom slide ones aren't yet failing. They are worn. But since I have the parts, I'm going to go ahead and do it now and make some changes as well. To lift the slide in general, you're going to level your RV. And I happen to be working on a curb here, which isn't an ideal situation, but I don't really have a flat space around here. Take the slide out, only about 12 inches. That is a deep slide, but it has to have some room to flex. On the 18-inch slide on the other side, I went about half to 2/3 of the way out before using a similar technique to bring it. Just using a floor jack, a 2x4 in this case. You can use a 4x4 if you want it. You got to make sure that you use a cross brace so that it's not putting too much pressure in one area, and make sure it's right on the stringer on the floor. Wherever there's a roller, like here, there's a stringer, so it's a lift point. And you don't want to push too hard. If you want a longer piece of wood, you could do that too and bridge a couple of them. But you never want to lift in between the rollers, because this is all soft floor and you'll punch right through it. So with this up, you don't have to go that much to replace just the rollers. You can't replace the whole bracket because of accessibility with the screws. But with the rollers itself, you only need to get enough lift. And I'm going to go ahead and just lift it slightly. And because this is such a short slide, I can do all 3 at once. And just a little bit more, and that'll be enough to do it. Now, I'm going to work on this one first and show you, number one, the rollers. I'm going to replace the nut and bolt. I will, because with it, these rollers have a bearing, and I'll show you that separately. Part of the problem with these is this space in between, and the bearings are pressed into the end of the roller. And if the bearings work themselves out, then the end of the plastic roller fails. You can't just tighten this and make it tighter by the nut, because it'll pinch the roller and prevent it from rolling. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the new rollers, but I'm going to put a small washer on either end. And you can't go all the way tight, because it's going to touch on the outer and inner bearing. It's going to touch on the inner and outer bearing race, unless you have something that's small enough to do so. A standard small washer will work, and I'll show you that one. But our goal is to put a washer at either end so that the bearing can no longer walk out of that space, causing a failure of the plastic. So here's what we're looking at. Here's one of the replacement rollers. You'll notice they're not as yellow, they're fresher, they're crisper, the bearings are in them, but they do still have that gap in there. What I like to use are these small washers at this point. If you use anything that's smaller, and this is a 3/8 ID, if you use anything with a smaller flange, it might punch through the end hole on the bracket. If you use it bigger, then if there is any kind of failure, it's going to stick up above the end of the bracket, which you don't want to do. So as small as possible, and just a standard thickness washer, and two of them will just snug in there between. What I like to use to get them out of the RV, because you can't take the brackets out again, is a 9/16 open end on one end and a 9/16 on a 1/4 inch with a universal joint extension and a ratchet. That allows you to get in there easier without going one click at a time. You can actually get it out pretty quick. A pick is also handy, or in this case a dental tool, in order to reach in there and grab the rollers. You really don't want to stick your fingers in there anywhere that if that jack slips or anything, you pinch yourself. Hopefully you can see what's going on there. I think you have a pretty good shot at it. Kind of got that GoPro taped up to where it works. Didn't have the right clamp. But the 9/16 with that extension, with the universal joint to get the ratchet on the outside. There we go. Get that bolt off. Pull the bolts all the way out. We're going to use a fresh bolt too. Again, you don't really want to get your fingers up in there, but take those two rollers out. And you're going to get the new bolt in. You're going to get one of those washers on the ends. You're going to get one roller on. You're going to get the second roller in. Still trying not to get my fingers in there, but it's hard not to get everything lined up. This, if you need to bend the bracket outward slightly momentarily, you can do that. You want the second washer in and kind of squeeze, move, press, and use the pick and get everything to work at once. And it'll go through, and now I have a washer on this end, I have a washer on this end. I'm going to put the nut back on. Now here's the key. Obviously you want it tight enough to take the rest of the gap out, but you don't want it too tight to where the roller is not going to turn anymore, because those washers will push up against the outer bearing, or the outer race of those bearings. So we're going to tighten it up. And this is by trial and error and working on the other side. And just go to tight and make sure that they're going to turn. A little more, tighten it until it's on the race and it doesn't want to turn. From there, loosen it about a 1/4 turn, maybe a little bit more. Now it's in there. It's fairly tight, but it's got just a little wiggle and spins real well and should be good to go on this one. I have 2 more to do, and then we'll look at some of the more of the details on it. So what happens with that gap? Essentially there's a bearing that's very narrow that's pressed into the end of this roller. When that gap's there and it's rolling, the plastic's going to expand a little bit, and the bearing is allowed to come out almost all the way, about halfway anyway, doubling the pressure in that one area and putting all the pressure on the end of the plastic. So ultimately, with the weight of the room, that plastic is going to fail because the bearing's walking out. It's going to bust out, and then this is going to drop down, and your room's going to be out of alignment. And also there's potential that the bracket itself is going to drag on the bottom of the floor, ruining the bottom of the floor of the slide out. So our goal with that washer is to get the bearing so it stays flush all the way in, but because the washer is a size that touches both the inner and outer race. That's why you can't tighten it too much or it'll just seize the bearing. But if you put it in place, back it off a quarter turn, then it'll allow it to have the gap that it can still spin, but it'll be close enough that it'll keep that bearing inside the plastic. Okay, so 1, 2, 3 rollers done on that one. Just going to ease down on the floor jack, and the piece of wood unfortunately is going to follow up because I'm holding the camera. So instead, you'll take my word for it. Alright, so now I can bring that slide all the way back in and hold it down until it stops. And the only time that you bring it out halfway is if you're working on something like that, otherwise you always go full extent. So now I'm going to bring it back all the way out, because I have other stuff to do inside. And to just see how well it's moving. Nice and smooth, no gap. All 3 of them are moving the same. And we're coming all the way out. And holding it down until it stops. On to the next one. Hey folks, it's Steve from M4 again with another side project. This is related to the main slide on my 2024 Dynamax Europa 32KD. And we have had a number of slide issues, and some of the controls and racks and everything have been replaced. But recent failure are the rollers underneath the slide. So this is going to go through diagnostics and then also replacement of the rollers themselves. Here you will see a roller that was taken out and a replacement that was sent. Hopefully the replacements are going to last a little bit longer. At least in the meantime, it's going to hold us over until we find a better solution. The total cycles on the slide is probably around 50, about 8,000 miles on the rig, and just under 2 years old. So what you're seeing at this point, a little bit easier to see, is the rack is bowing out. And if you notice, there's a larger space here above the block that guides the rack, and that's the inside bracket here. And it's riding up on it, which is forcing everything out. And the reason in this case, it can either be alignment, or in this case, it is a roller that's failing. And you notice we'll get a better picture of it once it's out, but I'm not going to replace a bracket, I'm just going to replace a roller. And you notice that it's below center, and the bottom of the roller is completely touching the bottom of the bracket, and the metal part that supports the roller center bolt is up almost at the fiberglass. Luckily it's not quite at the fiberglass. Once it gets there, it damages the bottom and you just got to do some metal patching. So what I need to do is get this slide back in. It should be 2/3 out, and we're going to be jacking up the slide with a floor jack and a piece of wood that's going to go horizontal because there's beams this way. So we need to do something that's going to bridge the beams and lift it evenly enough to get this bolt out. Luckily this one does have a bolt, and replace just the roller itself. And the other ones look good, but if they're all built from the same production lot, I'll do the same ones at a time. I believe I have 4 rollers. We're going to bring the slide in so it's about 2/3 out. Wanted to go automatically without stopping, so I got to come out just a little bit. That should be about good. So here's the replacement roller that was sent. It pretty much looks the same. The bracket itself is the same, and there's no way to get the screws in from the top to replace the whole bracket, and it doesn't need to be replaced. So without the room out, you can't get those screws out because they would be up against the room. So I'm just going to take the bolts out of this one, take the rollers off, and put them into the other one. And you notice there's two rollers, they're about the same. They have a small bearing in there. On the ones that come out, we'll see if the bearing failed or if the plastic failed. Not a real big bearing for the load. These brackets are rated at 200 pounds a piece from what I see. And this part of the slide is underneath the room where the refrigerator is, the pantry is, plus you got your food in there, plus you have your stuff in your pantry, bottles, whatever. So it's pretty heavy. And there's only really two rollers that are directly underneath when the slide is out. So that's 400 pounds, but the refrigerator itself is like 325, plus the food, plus the pantry, plus the stuff in the pantry, plus the countertop and the cabinetry. It's pushing it. All right, looking at the floor of the room from underneath, the question's been asked if there's a roller there and there's a roller there, and that's kind of the fridge area, why can't you just add a roller in between? All of this area in between does not have a floor joist. If I start near this roller and work all the way down, it's not until I get to the other roller that there's another joist. So this has to be on a joist. If you were to put a roller through anywhere else here, it would just punch through the bottom of the floor. There's one here, and then those don't really matter. So those joists in the room are really far apart. If there's one more in the middle, it would definitely help to be able to put an additional roller. All right, unfortunately there's got to be a little backyard engineering going on to this without everything, but I'm using a strut and a jack to lift up on the room. I tried doing it more in the center of the two rollers, but it was tending to lift the middle instead of the end one. So all you need is enough that you can get in there, and obviously watch your fingers through the whole process to be able to replace the roller. All right, so it uses a 9/16 again. You know, watch your fingers in case something wants to pop out. I'm using a little 1/4 inch ratchet just to try to get some movement out of it slowly. Of course, you don't want to lose the bolts in there either. Not thrilled about my fingers being in there. There's no washer or anything else, and at the same time we got to not lose these pieces back in there because they're not going to be fun to fish out. There's one, and the bearing just fell out of it. And there's the second one, and the bearing just fell out of that one too. Alright, so that roller goes in, this roller goes in, and then if you get lucky you get it all in one shot. I did use the new bolt that came off the other bracket, and that's all the way in. We'll get this nylock started and then cinch it down. Now I do want to bring that in as much as possible because I don't want a big gap in there. I want that tighter because that gap could force the bearing out and to crumple the plastic as well. Probably could have got an extension and a universal joint. So that's about where I want to be. It's got to stretch a little, but I don't want no gap and I don't want too big of a gap. So here's what came out. Obviously the outer plastic is stretched, the inner plastic is broken. The inner plastic has a chunk out of that one. The bearings, surprisingly, are actually together. If I look up a bearing about that size, it's probably rated at about 60 pounds a piece. There's 4 of them in there, so that gets you close to the 200 that the roller itself is rated at. and one of them stayed in there, but the other one's just completely crumpled. So the new ones, the bearing looks to be the same size, and obviously there's no cracks and it's new. Now, does the construction look any different on the plastic itself? Not really. Try to get a zoom in on the pattern. It looks like there's a harder inner core and a softer outer core. And the inner core notches look the same. It's easier to see on the yellowed one where the little notches hold it all together. But all that looks the same. If the plastic has been changed to a better plastic, that would be good. But realistically, I'd rather see a bigger bearing, a bigger shell, and a roller bearing that can hold more weight would be a better solution. I have not been able to find something the exact same 3/4 size to fit in the existing brackets. I've seen larger ones, but not one the same size, which can be problematic. Okay, second roller, I found a better solution is to use a 9/16 again, 1/4 inch universal joint on my small handle. And I believe that's going to help me a lot of doing that 1 or 2 clicks per turn. So if I look at the last one, the bearings were popping out. They're supposed to be pressed into the roller. So it was only going to be a matter of time until they came out further and put more weight on the plastic and cause the plastic to pop. Again, even maybe the same setup, but with a deeper roller bearing or something, it would be much more substantial and hold more weight. Alright, looking back at the main slide, there's still something I don't like. The rollers are all good. They're all fresh. They're at full height. Everything's good. This bottom rail, and I had this happen on the bedroom slide, and I made an adjustment, but this one's a bear to get to, is bowing out. And if you look at the inside here, and it's hard to see, there's a gap here, but on the bottom, the block is riding up onto the inside bracket, and that's pushing it out. So realistically, the only other thing I can do is to raise or to lower the inside bracket slightly. What that should look like is the one on the other end, where the block is dropping down between the bracket. It's always hard to do it on this side of the GoPro, but you'll notice that it's inward and the gaps are even top and bottom, and there's no bow to the rack. It's actually really straight. So I'm going to see if I can get into that closet. I have some other adjustments to make, but I'm going to see whether I can get the slide part way in or all the way in and get any kind of access to that bracket to drill new holes and move it up just about 1/8 of an inch. And here's why the access is so difficult. That slide is basically to the left of the refrigerator. There's a wall there. And that bracket is in between there, which you would have to take off a lot of stuff to be able to get to it. If at all I'm lucky, I can go into the bedroom dresser, take out the 2 drawers, and see whether with the slide in I have access to that bracket to drop it down 1/4 inch. Okay, so this is the dresser in the bedroom where I was pointing out before. I got some light in there. You can see the side of the refrigerator. You can see the slide out. These rails we can get out of the way temporarily if we need them. By the way, when you're looking for your GU12, it's in here. When you're looking for your extender for the tire pressure monitor sensor, it's in here on a 32 kD. So what we're going to look for is the lower slide coming in. Now the upper one I don't think I have access to, but at this point I think that one's okay. Obviously the engine's running, bringing the slide in, the jacks are down, so we're getting a lot of beeping in the background. Alright, I'm going to start bringing the driver's slide in. You can see what's going on behind it, and let's see where that appears. I'm going to stop part way, so I can already see the bracket there, and that's the one that I want to adjust down a little bit. So I need to bring it in so I have some flexibility first of all, because if it's too far out I'm not going to be able to push it up and down. But I still have to be able to access it, so let's see how far I can bring it in until it's an issue. And I don't know if you have the best angle of that on or not, but I'm going to retract it again. Again, normally I wouldn't be starting and stopping the retraction. And that's about as far as I can go where I can work in there and move the bracket, because I have to drill new holes. I have to take out the screws, drill new holes, pilot holes, move the bracket down and put them back in. So it's going to be hard to get any of that on video because I'm going to be, my whole body's going to be in there. I'm going to take out this drawer slide, and that'll give me a little more access to move around, and I just got to go for it. So as a reminder, pretty much all the hardware, and these actually have a combination Phillips head, all the hardware everywhere on these RVs is mostly number 2 square head. Even if it has a Phillips, get a number 2 square head, because that's going to grab better and fit in there better. I like a long extension, and it's adjustable, and or I can use a power driver on a limited basis. I'm just going to get this done. You're not going to see it happen. Alright, that lower drawer guide is out, so there's better room. What I like to do is take some blue tape and put it right over the bracket in the existing position. That way it's easier to judge when it's a 1/4 inch lower, and we can drill new holes and sink the screws into it, lowering it. Okay, with the 4 screws out of that bracket, and some shadows here, you can see, let me try to get that held up, and you got water lines in the way and everything else. But you can see this can move up and down slightly, and we're just going to move it down slightly so it's a 1/4 inch. It's actually kind of where it wants to fall right now. But a 1/4 inch from the top of the tape, and then I did put a little tape line on the left so I can get the depth at the same as it was, because it was sitting pretty flush top to bottom now. And you'll also notice the bottom, let's see if we can get the right angle, the bottom bracket there, and I can't point to it because I can't get 2 hands in there. The top of the bracket that goes out and hits that alignment block on the outside is really chewed up, especially because when the roller was bad, it sat even further up, and so it was interfering with that bracket. So it's chewed up. It's still usable. It's not like it needs to, the bracket itself needs to be replaced. But I'm going to go ahead and drill that and do it. The screws that are in there are super long. They're self-tapping, but you don't want to self-tap because even if they self-tapped them before, they've already been used once. So it's going to be easier to do a small pilot hole and then drive the screws back in. So start with one and then work one at a time, one at a time all the way around until it's in. And again, I'm not really going to be able to film that because it's just too tight in there. Okay, a little improvising to get everything lined up. So the gap is down a little bit. I'll kind of drill on the high side so when the screws go in, it'll come up a little bit. But I just used a piece of stick to kind of hold it where it needed to go. I also put the slide out just a little bit more so I had more access. So that's a pilot drill I was using for the holes, slightly smaller than the threads. It's tight in there because, and hard to see again, I do have 3 of them in, got to put the 4th one in, the hole's already drilled. Those holes have to be right below the other existing holes, so hopefully it's not too far, shouldn't be. We'll find out soon. Okay, so those 4 screws are in, and now I'm just going to go outside, start her up again, run it in and out, and see where we're at. Okay, back on the outside, and it's partially extended. We're going to extend it the rest of the way. And if we look at it, and I haven't pre-done this or anything, that is up higher, so there's actually a little space. There is still a gap between the coach and the side, but the rail itself is less bowed. And some of that's probably just the room shifting over in the gap on this side. Should actually take a measurement from the wall here, from the wall to this seam, not including the caulking, and it should be 3 7/8 is the proper measurement. It looks like that might be a little bit big, but it does look a little bit better, the alignment of where it's not going to hit. Now we're going to do a full retract. Seems reasonably okay. Maybe do a full extend just for the heck of it. Still a little noisy in there. Not sure if it's the top one or it's just a seal that's going across. But definitely a little bit of noise here and there. And before you say it, I know Vroom is probably the ultimate solution that's going to take care of slide issues on my slim rack, roller issues this time, which I don't have a lot of faith in longevity of the ones that I just put in. But it's about 15 grand right now to do the 2 slides to Vroom, which would is supposed to be awesome and take care of everything. But I'm less than 2 years into this rig, so I'm going to try to get by with what I can for now until I make that investment. So there you go. Hopefully that helps. It is a little bit of a long video, but think of it as 3 different videos put into one. I tried to edit it down as close as I could and still get the information across. Keep in mind this channel was started and is primarily around M4 LED, and we make LED products like repair modules for RVs and retrofit bulbs. Check out M4 products if you need any of that. I'm going to continue to make this type of video though as needed, just because it helps people out.